Good afternoon, everyone. I'm an associate member of T3 Trading Group, which is an SEC registered broker dealer and member of FINRA. All of my trades are placed through T3 Trading Group. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your own financial condition. Position disclosure here is basically the same, except I put on some AMD options to hedge the not too huge short position that I have on, but I am holding a little bit in the report, and so I wanted to get through. We've got a couple stocks here. Snap doing what it does on every earnings report ever. I don't know why that guy Spiegel is still the CEO. Snap trading down. 833 is the low. They actually guided higher. XTT. Actually got it above expectations. I'm actually surprised. Just that's the only number I'm seeing here. Oh, there we go. Snap. Third quarter adjusted EBITDA. Kind of in line. Third quarter revenue guide's a small beat for a company that never, ever, 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 ever beats on anything. They beat on active users. They guided higher. Um, Second quarter revenue is a small miss. I'm actually surprised. It's not like the stock is up a ton, but I'm actually slightly surprised that it's not trading up because unlike almost every other company that I can think of right now, I would expect that the expectations on Snap, like no one expects this company to beat their earnings ever because they never ever do. Well, I do the same as trading down because they have a terrible CEO. Um, Same time here, we have SMCI trading down, getting absolutely clobbered. Every single semiconductor name that has reported earnings so far this season has gotten clobbered. SMCI is getting absolutely hammered here, but we have the most important one set to report in just a little bit, which is AMD. AMD should be out in 3 minutes. I think it's the most important event of the week is the AMD report, and we will see. Can AMD possibly be the first semiconductor name this earnings season to not go down on earnings? To not go down on earnings. It's had a huge run into the report. My expectation is that it's going to report well. I think it's going to report pretty good. Yeah, but a little bit snap. Um, uh, it it I think it's going to report well, but I don't think it's going to trade great on it on like a good report, like what we've seen with all the other earnings names so far. Um, very consistently we've seen companies if their earnings report is good, it's not good enough. You need to report a phenomenal report like Meta, Microsoft, or Palantir in order to be able to go higher. And honestly, Palantir's report was so phenomenal, I almost felt it should be higher. So, notable some of the reactions here that we are seeing on some of these reports. But Snap is doing its usual, being trash. Big seller here at $8. But actually, I report that I don't I feel like that's most of the Snap reports that we typically always see when it trades down 20% into this. I actually think that isn't bad, but we'll see. We'll see. Oops. All right, AMD is going to be the real star of the show here. In just a moment. SMCI clobbered. $30. Waiting on AMD. again, I've been talking about AMD a lot last couple of days. I think that this report is just extremely important for the whole market right now because this represents the AI trade, and the AI trade's created the bull market. So the pivot high from Thursday, the pivot low from Friday, which one holds, what happens next in the market may depend on AMD here if it's a big mover. Up, trading up. AMD adjusted EPS misses by a penny, revenue beats, now it's trading down. R&D expenses higher than estimate, operating margin basically in line, very, very small miss. Not seeing any guidance here. Those numbers don't look good enough to me. They see that's what we need to know. They see third quarter revenue. All right, so they're guiding higher in revenue. The second quarter numbers on AMD don't look phenomenal to me, but guidance is the most important thing when it comes to an earnings report. AMD is guiding up compared to estimates. So this is a report that is interesting. I can't classify this as a knock your socks off earnings report like Meta, like Microsoft, like Palantir. Um, the question is it enough? Advanced Micro Devices for quarter U.S. government export control led to 800 million in inventory and related charges. Pretty much everything here is in line, except they guided higher on third quarter revenue by a not huge amount. Based on how this earnings season is going, I would almost expect it to be trading like flat to down on this instead of trading a little bit flat to up. There's a good chance that this report is not significant enough to really change the big picture of the market, though. Like a big beat or miss, a big move higher or lower on AMD. My thought process has been that that could be um, the catalyst for this market to either break Friday's low or break below Friday's low, in which case we get a real change, or break above Thursday's high, in which case the bull market is on. We delivered strong revenue growth in the second quarter led by record server and PC processor sales, said Dr. Lisa Su. It's hard to bet against Dr. Lisa Su. We're seeing robust demand across our computing and AI product portfolio and are well positioned to deliver significant growth in the second half of the year. This one might have to wait, for the conference call to be a big mover. Josh just said he shorted a tiny bit. I would not be in a rush to jump in front of this here. Gene Hu is the AMD EVP, CFO, and treasurer. All right, so yeah, so we got AMD up $3. It's turning in the most important event of the week is turning into a potential non-event, which might not help us with our big picture market to get trend continuation or trend reversal. It might, if anything, help to keep us in check. But we will keep an eye on this. Um, Hold on, just give me a second here because I do have a position on and I want to make sure that I manage it properly. One second, if you please. I had some, lots. If I'm holding a name into earnings report, I often have some bids and offers out that are based on the measured move from the options market to capture like a really fast whip to one of those directions. Now that this is turning into a non-event, I want to cancel some of the bids I had in the mid 160s. Get a couple more out there. A little bit of a higher price. We'll see. There's still a chance that they sell this down. All right, one more second here. And I want to take a quick look at Snap, and then we can start our normal afternoon meeting. Snap is just stuck at this 8. This is such classic Snap action. I feel like I've seen this movie so many times. Trade it down, there's a refreshing seller at a whole number, it gets stuck, it does nothing. Next day they typically rally it a little bit. But I didn't think that Snap report was too bad. Alright, I want to keep an eye on AMD and SMCI. SMCI potentially turning into an even bigger deal than AMD. The SMH ETF is doing nothing. It's doing nothing. I don't know if SMCI is in the SMH. Yeah, I got some bids a little bit lower in AMD. All right. Uh, let's kind of do our usual here. What's NVIDIA doing? Let me just see if NVIDIA is having any reaction right now. Nothing. NVIDIA is down 15 cents after hours. Why are quantum names moving here after hours? RGTI is trading up 15 cents. No big deal. QUBT is up 10 cents. Ion Q is upticking a little bit. Yeah, Ion Q, maybe something going on. All right. Um, Spies are trading up, actually, from where they closed. Spies are up, looks like 50 cents, but even with that, we closed negative 0.4% on the day. Qs are down 0.65% on the day. They're up 30 cents after hours, 40 cents after hours. It's a little bit worse than that. The IWM, on the other hand, closed green. So Russell was up 0.5%. TLT was green. The dollar, and paying close attention at 27.50. We're still holding above it, but there's been no real movement in this dollar the last couple days. Bitcoin closed negative, which I thought was interesting. Sometimes Bitcoin gives us an insight into the risk on, risk off nature of where the market is. And I remember noting that it was negative off the open, or negative when we were doing our morning meeting. So, um, we had a negative day for the spies and Qs, positive day for the IWM. The thrust of the morning meeting today was to keep the gap up. That was basically it. Um, we had Thursday sell off from all-time highs to being a bearish engulfing Maribozu candlestick. And the next day on Thursday, combined with the jobs number, we got continuation. Monday of this week, we had a big snapback rally. Monday at the open, I had very little conviction. I felt it was too early to short, but the gap up was too big to chase. But then this morning, when we gapped up again, we were now gapping up kind of into this gap fill area, and I liked the idea of looking short versus kind of the pre-market high area versus like the 633 area. We did get a little bit of a rally in the beginning of the day. Quick 5 minute sell off, then new highs, a little bit of a rally into the beginning of the day, but we never recaptured the pre-market high, which is what I was at least initially looking at to I just got built on the bid in AMD. It's what I was at least initially looking at to be short versus. So it bounced back pretty well. And I remember as a team, we were watching this opening price action on this little pullback really, really closely to see if we could get a break through this ADMA, get a breakthrough opening lows. There were some really key levels there we were paying attention to. All right, hold on, sorry. Sometimes it's really hard, guys, to do these afternoon meetings when you're holding positions and doing a news report at the exact same time. As much as I love you guys and want to give my best information and want everybody to improve and be successful, sometimes you got to look out for number one a little bit, um, and make sure that you're making money yourself. And sometimes you got to say, you know what, screw these guys. They get to hear me all day, every day anyway. AMDC's third quarter OPEX. higher than expectations. AMD getting hit. Sorry, I just really need a second here. And Nvidia getting hit now too. As I also got filled on the bid. I'm also for Nvidia into this, which made me a little nervous to be sure both at the same time. It's such an important report, but all's well that ends well. I might have a mistake of a bid there. I need to cancel it. What were those puts that I sold? 162.50. Right. Here, let me at least put up this screen over here, my execution, so that you guys aren't too bored by my trading. So even doing that just cost me $50. All right, all right, all right, all right. I wouldn't mind a little AMD bounce here. Not too crazy, but a little AMD bounce might be good for the kids. I gotta get a couple offers out on the 169s. Continue to follow the game plan. Gotta get some offers in the 170s also. Good short by Josh. Good call out in the VTF. Leffler in the hizzy. All right. Let me go back to attempting to do a meeting at the same time as I trade. All right, let's get rid of that chart. All right. So I'm trying to recap, the morning, because I think we called it really well, right? We had that immediate uptick in the market, but we more or less held the pre-market highs. I like the idea of shorting into it, and then we broke through major support levels. We got helped by a weak economic number. Um, ISM services, I think, and so that prices paid came in hot, but activity came in light. It's the same, like, it wasn't anything too crazy, it wasn't anything too dramatic, but it's the same stagflation story that I feel like we've started to see here and there in some of the economic numbers came out at 10 a.m. And that just helped to bring this market back down. And then the spies and Qs never really recovered. They had some bounce backs. They never really truly recovered. Um, as opposed to the IWM, which actually had a fantastic recovery. I don't really know what to attribute that to, but the IWM made it pretty much back to the high of the day and almost closed at its high. So let's take a look at the daily charts now at the end of the day here, see what our update looks like. So, we closed on lows thing with the spies. I don't think AMD is probably helping the situation here, or SMCI helping the situation. We have seen every semiconductor name, by the way, so far in earnings paid down on their reports, if we're assuming that AMD ends up being down as well. Um, is this a lower high? That's the question. Is this the lower high? Is this changing a trend? Or do we build out more of a choppy wedge pure consolidation pattern here? Um, I was of the opinion that there's a chance that AMD could tell the story on that, and we'll see. AMD is a feather in the hat of the Bears right now for sure. So we will see if the market can get below this low from Friday. That low from Friday, I can't even describe the importance of that low from Friday. 6,200 is a really important S&P level. The low from Friday is just above it. And just below 6,200 is where you'll find the CTA sell triggers from the trend following community. So if you all of a sudden you're getting below like 6,190, you're losing support, you're probably systematic selling, if volatility is increasing at the same time, you could all of a sudden go through a dramatic market shift. Now we saw the Scott Rubin note from Citadel. Sounds weird to say that. We saw the Rubin note from Citadel come out today, and he was not as bearish from August, feeling that there is still some sort of a degree of an underlying bid in this market right now. So, sorry, one second again. He's a little bit more worried for September. And I've kind of been in that camp myself. Like I've been feeling like August is going to be more of a downside kind of grind, and September. Okay, Rich, I'll do my best. And September is going to be the more important spot. Um, so we'll see how that turns out. But there is a real issue here if this market loses that 6,200, because then all of a sudden you could go into that larger feedback cycle of selling that we've spent so much time talking about. So pretty much it. Is that's the question. Is today the lower high or not? Does it lead to a breakdown? And I don't have that answer, but time will tell. And these earnings reports from the most important companies are not helping the situation. So that's kind of just a look at the big picture of the SPYs, the S&P. Qs are the same deal here. Assuming that these Qs are trading down. Yeah, Qs are trading down now from the close as well. So it's making this daily candle look even worse. It's a lower high. Time will tell. IWM is holding in better. Better doesn't mean good. The Russell here had the multiple false breakouts above 225, got hit down really hard. Good relative strength today. There's an argument to be made that if August is a little choppier, and September's where like a potential real sell-off comes in, like per what the Scott Rubner note says, that within the confines of that, there could be just rotation underneath the surface, where our big winners or big AI winners that are up so much, kind of like what we're seeing happen right now, start to underperform and value catches a little bit of a bid, like healthcare type names. I know that there was people looking at and some chatter around UNH today. There was some chatter that Warren Buffett was taking a stake, which I think turned out to be kind of disproven. But really big bounce back from UNH. Somebody brought that up in the morning meeting today. Might have been Varun. It's pretty good inside and up for an oversold bounce in a beaten up stock. This name makes me a little bit worried just because of all the news that's around it, but generally speaking, it wouldn't be surprising if August is not a disaster, that it is more rotational in nature, where you actually see value outperform for a few weeks, which hasn't happened since 2022. When we were in a bear market in 2022, value did outperform that year. Energy in particular was up big that year. The energy stocks, there were value names, they were super cheap. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much where I'm at. As far as trading for today goes, the only real day trade that I took on today was going long the SPXL via the SPYs, basically more or less at this low. That was when we were getting to the Iron Condor support in the SPX, coupled with really good downside extension on the 5-minute chart, 4 5-minute red bars in a row, built into some SPXL on the long side, liquidated the whole position at the ADMA on the daily chart for just a little day trade. Everything else I did was swing position management, a lot of focus on Palantir, which I did hold some Palantir into the report. I offset that a little bit with options. So the options paid me. Palantir itself didn't. I lost more on the Palantir outright stock than I made on the options, which is what my game plan really was going into it. I was not fully hedged out on it. So just kind of spent a lot of the day managing that position around that negative P&L. But yet, even with that Palantir hit on the day, was able to finish positive. That JLBY was a big help, and I'm actually not expecting this to pull back as much as it did on the day to day with yesterday just being day one. Because day two's are tricky. You kind of never really know on those day twos. So that's all I got. Apologies for, being slightly distracted at the same time that I'm chattering with you guys here. But, trading some of these earnings names and that always makes things inherently a little bit tricky sometimes. But I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody may have. Whose 13F is this? Thanks, Rock. Appreciate it. It's Amazon's? Amazon owns AMD? Sorry, it's hard for me to really look at this at the same time, especially on this computer. This is my only computer where I have two screens, and it's annoying. I don't have a lot of space here. Just logged into the YouTube. I'm not seeing any commentary, but I don't know if it's. Oh, there it is. It's just loading slowly. So over on the YouTube from Apex Joy, have you heard Hood possibly join the S&P after Paramount removed? There's been rumors of it potentially being added into the S&P for months, and it has not happened. So I do continue to hear those rumors, but it's just taking good guesses. It would make sense at this point for Robinhood to get added to the S&P. I mean, they added Coinbase, didn't they? If you're gonna add Coinbase, you might as well add uh thanks. I'll take a look at it in a second. If you're gonna add Coinbase, you might as well add Hood. Oh, okay. See, thanks, John. Hold on one second. Reading something and filled. Yeah, AMD gave a little bit of a bounce back now, which is great. Like, honestly, it went to like perfectly where I needed it to go. Yeah, the Iron Condor. Well, that's a team effort there, Rock. We got a great team here. Um, Bill K gave us the Iron Condor information pre-market, or maybe right at the open, and then Rich was all over letting us know when we were approaching either side of the Iron Condor throughout the day, and it's just phenomenal information because the size of that Iron Condor is enough to really influence the market and provide support, especially when you extend down into that support. Varun, there's just been a really large iron condor player in the S&P that's so big that it actually influences the entirety of the market. So when that person comes in, he's not always there, or she. Um, yeah, he did close early today. But so I read Bill, and I wanted to ask you earlier, or I might have, but I don't know if you heard me or responded. I read in some research report that he got smoked on Thursday, I think, and then didn't come back on Friday, which, as we know, is very unique. Every time he does lose money, or um, she usually like doubles down on the position the next day. I don't know if you had seen that in real time or not, as it was happening, but I read that in some research report this morning, and it even said how much P&L was probably lost. Like well, it lost $8 million on the trade or something like that. I don't really remember what the number was. Yeah, the flow is key. Yeah, interesting that he didn't come back, right? I think it's the first time we've seen that. Was the number 8 million? Am I right on that on the P&L loss? What's 8 million among friends? Um, but we know that that person has made so much more than $8 million. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. On the year, it's a drop in the bucket. But interesting to see that they did not come back the next day. I mean, smart to not come back the next day. They probably recognize that there's a good chance that Nine Condor is not the play for that Friday. Right back over to the YouTube. Uh, from Robert, which one of today's PMI did you take most seriously? Global services PMI, non-manufacturing PMI, or non-manufacturing prices? It was the 10 a.m. number, not the 9:45 a.m. number. And like I was saying before, I can try to find the numbers in the VTF just to read them out loud. I'd have to scroll all the way up to 10 a.m. Hold on, let me find it. I'll just find it. I'll just find it. All right. 10 a.m. right here. Um, US ISM services. Yeah, it was the services number. I was right. Services PMI came in light. 50.1 versus a forecast of 51.5. So that's the most important number. Within that, um, services employment came in light, 46.4. Not light, there's no expectation on it, but came in down compared to last time. It's still contracting, right? Anything beneath 50, I think, is contracting, if I remember correctly. And then services prices paid came in hot versus expectations at 69.9 versus 66.5. So this goes back to what I was just saying before. These are stagflationary numbers. This is exactly the worst possible thing that can happen to an economy. And by the way, tariffs are stagflationary in nature, right? Tariffs, as we all know, make for higher prices and lower growth. And when you look at economic numbers like what happened with the services PMI today, this says higher prices and lower growth. It's literally what it says. And um, for just to review this information again, the reason why stagflationary numbers are so bad, meaning lower growth at the same time as higher inflation, is because the Fed doesn't really have any tools to combat it. All of the tools that the Fed has can combat one side of the mandate or the other. Because seeing this is actually wrong, right? Usually, if you have a slowing economy, usually it means that inflation is inherently coming down because how can inflation get out of control if the economy is slowing? Or usually, if the economy is actually too robust, then inflation can get out of control. So the economy, so usually, if there's a problem with the Fed's mandate, it's either the economy is going to start doing too well and inflation is getting out of control, or the opposite is happening, where the economy is doing so poorly, but inflation is also low. The Fed has tools to be able to fight weaker unemployment, weaker employment, lower growth on the one side of the mandate, right? They can do that by lowering interest rates, by engaging in QE. And they also have tools where they can work on reducing inflation. That's what we did in 2022. In 2022, inflation got out of control. It went up to 9.1%. The Fed raised interest rates. By the way, Powell took a lot of heat for that when he did it, but it just with the speed in which he increased interest rates, everybody said he was going to destroy the stock market, destroy the economy, destroy everything, and uh, it worked out phenomenally well. He was able to bring interest rates, I mean, inflation all the way down almost to the Fed's mandate without without increasing without creating like a catastrophic bear market at the same time. We had a very mild bear market. So, they've got tools on one side of the mandate or the other. The problem is if employment worsens at the same time that prices increase, what do they do? You can increase interest rates to deal with prices, but then you're going to destroy the economy, or you can lower interest rates to help the economy, but then you might have a very genuine inflation problem. So that's why it's so problematic to see numbers like that. And the big conversation from the beginning on tariffs has been, well, tariff impacts are traditionally um, uh, high inflation and low growth in nature. So, what are the impacts going to be like on that? And that's why we saw this immediate news driven bear market come in. It's just if you've ever studied economic theory and you look at what we're doing on the time perspective, you go, holy crap, this is insane. Well, that's what the market said. It sold us all the way down. But then when it didn't actually hit immediately into the economic numbers, and you combine it with a massive positioning squeeze, you were then able to have one of the most historic rallies of all time. So it's kind of yet to be seen the degree to which it impacts the economy. And there are other factors that influence the economy at the same time. For example, um, AI, right? This AI revolution that we're going through, if what people like Mark Zuckerberg are saying turns out to be correct, the positive economic impacts of AI could really, really help to subdue the negative impacts from tariffs. So it's to be seen just the degree to which this really impacts things. But if you look at like that Scott Rubner note that came out, which is a public note, it's on Citadel's website. I highly recommend that you read it. It's free. You don't have to be a subscriber. If anybody can repost the link into the VTF or post it into the YouTube for the people who are in the YouTube, would be appreciated so they can make sure that they're reading that information. Um, one of the things that really stands out to me on that, let me see if we can even just pull it up here. I think I closed it after I finished reading it, so we need someone to provide me the link and I could pull it up. But one of the things that really stood out to me was retail bullishness. Thank you, Bill. Retail bullishness versus institutional bearishness. And, this has gotten me in a little bit of trouble also because the retail bit has been insane, right? So some of the securities retail flow has been a net buyer of cash equities in 27 of the last 28 trading sessions. They've been buyers of cash equities in 14 of the last 16 weeks following Liberation Day. Just one statistic after the next about how incredible the buying has been from retail. But, when you and that's with options, it's with cash equities. When you get into the institutional side of things, right here, Citadel Securities institutional clients have been bearish 8 of the past 12 weeks, reflecting broader market caution among professional investors. This has been such an interesting dynamic over the course of this calendar year because, again, personally, I don't consider retail to be the absolute money that we used to consider it to be, but I don't consider it to be as educated as, the professional institutional investors are. And I think a lot of people who are more professionals and honestly a little bit more educated on things like the economy have been really mentally struggling. And I've got my hand raised first and foremost here. I've really been mentally struggling with this rally over the course of the last few months because it just flies in the face of economic theory. It flies in the face of pretty much anything that you've ever learned about how economics works, how a strong economy works. This rally flies in the face of the entirety of the bull market from 2010 through 2020, which a lot of that was caused by globalization. That's what helped create a booming economy with at the same time, very low inflation. The biggest problem that we had in the 2010s was that we can't get inflation to be high enough a lot of the time. So you just had constant stimulus, zero interest rates, and that was just an effect of the entire world engaging in free trade. So, when you look at again like that Ruby node and you see that, it's really kind of like no wonder institutions have been underperforming compared to retail. The retail bit has been nonstop. They don't care. They buy the dip, they buy highs, they buy everything. And institutional clients have been bearish for 8 of the past 12 weeks and have been begrudgingly forced in to buy kind of consistently. So I don't remember how I got onto that. Oh, it's because we're talking about Robert asked me about the ISM numbers and the stagflationary nature of those numbers, and that kind of hit the market down. But anyway, when I just went over there, that was the most important part of the number that came out at 10 a.m., and that's what hit us down. Um, from Cyril, the IWM was a V-shaped sell-off and then recovery today, but closed where it opened. Looks like sideways is most probable right now, unless some catalyst. Yeah, but let's keep an eye on that IWM. It's by no means out of the woods, but it's definitely notable the relative strength that it showed today and the fact that it was able to close green and on highs when SPYs and Qs did not. I think that gives way a little bit more towards the idea of rotation, but we'll see. Apologies on the mic stuff there, Alcor. I'll do my best. Not on my best trading setup here today. Whoa, what just happened? Was there a false? One of my, I think one of my positions might have just had a wild false print that triggered my lockout, even though I'm green on the day, and I just lost all my offers. Yes. Oh, that is so annoying. Uh, AMD, by the way, is giving a really nice snapback rally here, back up to 170. Um, back to the YouTube. No problem, Brett. No problem, Robert and Kevin. If I get one or two good trades, I'm happy to just take the money and run. Last week I felt bearish. Now I'm unsure. Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I think that the highest probability is top with a bearish lean. That's what I'm looking at. So, and I think AMD, SMCI helped that bearish thought process. Try to lower the volume of the mic when I speak softer. It's better. All right, I'll try to do that for next time because I think we're about to wrap up here. Appreciate the feedback there, Cyril. All right, I'm gonna end it there. Have a great night, everybody. I'll